Good morning, this is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hey there, this is Ellen coming to you from the tropical island of St. Barts. Today we will be discussing the advantages of teaching on Zoom, LDI show planning, Lighting Devised Productions, the survival of manufacturers and lighting companies, and staying warm and toasty, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
And Sistah.
Yes, welcome everyone to episode 203. Steve and his family are evacuating from the ice floe covering Dallas, and therefore, unfortunately, is unavailable to join us today. However, today we welcome back our Lumen sister, Ellen Lampert-Grayo. Welcome back, Ellen. What have you been up to?
Tell us it's warm there.
Well, she's in St. Barts.
Weird stuff is happening, like Arctic air is coming down to Texas. It could go to the Caribbean too. Who knows?
Well, it has been a little cool and chilly here. It's been down to the low 70s at night.
Whoa,
See?
Low 70s. That's frigid. Hey, Ellen, it's great to have you here, no matter how warm it is in St. Barts. But before we get started today, we have Letters to Light Talk Central. So last week's show has created such a stir. Among other subjects, we talked about the Super Bowl halftime show, and the three of us were not so complimentary about the star of the show, The Weeknd. One of these letters was notable, and it is from Otis Shrimpleton from the Lake of the Ozarks. Mr. Shrimpleton writes, Dear Luminoids, I listened to last week's show on the Super Bowl halftime show featuring The Weeknd. Your ill-informed comments make it quite clear that the three of you are just aged old men stuck in the dinosaur rock world of the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, and Deep Purple. Hell, just listening to your pathetic theme song makes that obvious. My question is, what makes you experts of contemporary pop music? Say what you want about not getting it. We get it. You're old. Allow me to explain. I love this letter. The Super Bowl producers and advertisers are not aiming their halftime show to the geriatric demographic. Why? Because you guys are usually asleep and drooling in the Barco Lounger by 7:30 p.m. when the halftime show begins. This is why you don't see artists like America, the Partridge Family, or the Turtles as featured artists. Instead, we prefer artists who are still alive, like The Weeknd. But to keep this short, let me educate you about one of the songs you heard and how you unfairly bash the artists and designers. Regarding the Weeknd song, Can't Feel My Face, you all complained about the maze of horror, and in your words, the athletic supporter masks. Well, if you bothered to really listen, Can't Feel My Face is not about COVID, it's about cocaine. Can't Feel My Face won a Grammy and was Rolling Stone's best song of 2015. It is critically acclaimed and has more hooks than anything Michael Jackson ever wrote. And just to get you troglodytes up to speed, Michael Jackson was the lead singer for the Jackson 5. He eventually left the band and, unlike you three, actually had a notable career. Your comments about halftime show being self-indulgent is mind-boggling. This is not some boring Chekhov school play. It's a Super Bowl halftime show. Spectacle is called for and expected. The designers pulled out all the stops for a reason. And what's the kerfuffle about that one LED tile that was not functioning? No one really sees that. And who cares? So my suggestion to you three bozos is to forego your afternoon naps and listen to some current popular music. Or maybe you should have the Luminoids send an audition video to the halftime show producers. Let's see how far you get with that. Affectionately, Otis. P.S. Have you considered doing an episode about Metamucil?
That was pretty damning.
We should discuss it a bit. Ellen, you've been writing about the show over the past couple of weeks.
Believe it or not, for the past week, I have been deep in the end zone of the Super Bowl 55 halftime show.
Oh, no.
Yes, I've been reading your posts on Live Design
Have
Online.
you been in the Hall of Mirrors?
Well, I say whether you like The Weeknd's music or not, that show it's big. It's a massive undertaking.
It's huge.
And
It's
there's a
massive.
really, really talented group of people who put on this year. I thought it was a very edgy show.
It was edgy.
Football meets Las Vegas. So we've talked to a lot of people about it, and they're all sort of proud of what they did. I thought the pyro show was amazing. And the fact that they got to do that set, and it wasn't, that sort of, because it was the year of COVID and they didn't have to put the whole thing together in 7 minutes. They had a lot more time, and they got 3 set shops involved. They had Atomic, they had Tate, they had All Access. They had Al Gurdon, who's a lighting designer. It was his first time back since Madonna, and he talks about how the equipment's changed in those days, and they used a lot of PRG gear. And, I don't think you have to like the music to appreciate the job they do.
I agree, Ellen. Matter of fact, Stan was very, very negative about the show. He said that Al's work was, quote, overindulgent.
I only watched it with one eye, and I promised you I'll watch it again when I have a chance.
Stan, watch it with your good eye this time. You also have to remember that Al and Bruce Rogers and Ez Devlin and everyone else who works on this, they take their visual cue from the artist. So, if it's overindulgent, that may just be meeting the artist's needs.
I totally understand that.
I agree with you. I thought it was edgy. I said it in the review last week that I found, when I first watched it, I wasn't crazy about the music because I didn't think it was powerful enough. But then I watched it again and I started to really like it because I started to understand it because I was not familiar with his work, the Weeknd's work.
Right.
I thought a lot of it was actually very good. Then listen, Otis is correct. There's no doubt about it. We're talking about the Super Bowl here. So it's going to be spectacle. Everything's going to be big. And as predicted, Bruce and the gang did a wonderful, wonderful job in the entire production design. I love Al's work. I thought Al did a great job. It was all extremely precise. And there was a lot of variety to it.
Yep.
So considering all the restrictions they had, because of the pandemic, I thought they did a great job.
I think so too. And, one of the things that Al said that was really interesting was whether the entire 12-minute show is on the field or just that last number, which had no set but just the dancers, you still need the same size rig to light them as you would if you were doing the whole show there. So he ended up with 2 rigs, really, one for the set and one for the field. So the first time ever, read the article. There's a company called Stadium FX. For the first time, a lot of these stadiums are turning off those old
stadium lights. They have LED stadium lights.
They were able with these guys from Stadium FX to lock into those, and it gave them like a whole extra layer on the rig, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah. There were a lot of moments like that where you can actually see those lights. And I posted a clip of the show on the Light Talk Facebook page, and you can actually see the number I posted. You could actually see the stadium lights doing their thing. So I just thought it was great. So as Ellen said, check out Live Design Online. There's a lot of information about Super Bowl 55 halftime show on there. Light plots, equipment lists, names of the people involved. And it was a terrific production. Let's just say it. Congratulations again to Bruce Rogers, the team at Tribe, all the other companies that were involved, and of course to Al Gurdon. Stan has our first question.
Diane from the UAE writes, I have read that some design professors actually prefer teaching over Zoom. Besides the obvious pandemic concerns, what advantages do you see using distance learning versus face-to-face in the classroom? Well, actually, I was very resistant to any kind of online learning when the university was pushing it like mad on us. I don't like to be told what to do, and I like to go against the grain a little bit. So I wasn't into it. And then slowly I realized that when I wanted to show a student something, I had files all over the place, and it was driving me crazy. So I started to use it as a repository for information, because I think teaching now has become more an act of curation and coaching than an act of being the fountain of information, because we have an internet and Google. So as I was acquiring what I thought was interesting, useful stuff, I started to put it into these online learning modules to supplement my face-to-face teaching. So I have slowly moved from being against it, and ironically, now the university says, no, face-to-face is important, but they weren't saying that 5 years ago. So it's sort of like they speak with forked tongue. But now that we're doing it, and I'm forced to do it because of my own health condition, so I've been doing it since last March, I have a really nice rig at home for my consulting work. So I've got a computer, multiple screens, I've got a great camera, I got a mic on a boom because of this podcast. So I'm more set up at home to do online teaching than I would be anywhere else. But I also have access to all of my files, all of my examples. I'm much more organized. So I actually like it. And interestingly, I can share stuff more easily rather than me looking over a student's shoulder in a computer lab. It's right there. The share screen facility helps. The annotation in Zoom helps. And I think that the synergy between the students is in some ways better. Now, that's not to say some students really crave face-to-face, and I'm a social creature. I like to be face-to-face too. But I can say unequivocally that the content of the education has not suffered one bit. And in some senses, I think it's actually better because most of what I'm teaching is through conversation and seminar and software and examining imagery and looking at light plots and visualization. So all of that is at our fingertips. So in some ways, I find it has been an enhancement to what I normally do.
You know, Stan, of course, you were right. I totally disagree with you. Because when it comes to teaching theater, I think you need to be in the same room. Now, we all did the best we could over the past 2 semesters and probably another semester in the fall. But any type of studio art class, especially when you're dealing with art form, that collaboration and synergy and this group dynamic is really, really important. There's nothing like being in the same room. Yes, I was able to do it. It was okay. But I would put the level of quality learning experience at about maybe 60% instead of 100%.
I disagree. I'm not teaching theater. I'm teaching lighting design. And I'm teaching lighting design in a broad sense. We're lighting designers who sometimes light theater. So I think what I missed was the social interaction with people and the little conversation in the hallway after class, but I'm having that anyway. I really have. I don't know.
Our classes are different. I mean, to me, it's all about the energy, and it's not only theater. It's lighting, it's set design, it's directing, it's acting, it's performance, it's life. It's about all that stuff. And I just think that when you're in the same room with the energy of the students, that we just jam over that. We all just feed each other.
I don't know. I can feel it over Zoom.
Okay. I haven't mastered it that much. Ellen, I mean, have you reached a situation in a lot of your conferences and meetings where would you rather be in the room or would you rather be on Zoom?
I think I think there's some of each. What's really good about Zoom is that people from all over can be there. But what's really sort of odd is if there's a big meeting or a conference and a lot of people are there, and there's a few people who are on Zoom, and then you say, okay, we're going to take an hour break now. We're going to have lunch. We'll get back to you in an hour. And they turn off the Zoom, right, and they miss all that human interaction.
That's
not
the
only,
socialization
it's
piece.
not the sandwich that counts. It's the chit chat about it, And it's like,
Right,
I remember
right.
what you said this morning. That was really cool. And it's like, the next layer of whatever you're doing sort of happens in that personal contact. It's hard to be the boomer Zoomer when everybody else is in the room where it happens.
Yeah, and I think if you've got too many people, it could be a problem. Like my classes are, 3 and 3. There are 3 people in there with me. It's 4 people. So that the energy in there is, I'm looking right at their face. I know. They almost can't zoom out. They can't start daydreaming. They're engaged. But Ellen's point about the lunch is important. It's critical. I've sort of compensated, and I think that's something I do miss. And I've compensated for that with, I'm going to be texting with the student after this recording today, this evening, to look at some work. So I've had to compensate with making myself available via text at odd hours. Students definitely want to meet with me. I have an office hour. I have a personal meeting room, but I think that sitting down to the meal and that piece that's informal, I agree with you, Ellen. That is probably the piece that's missing. And I think that's important because I was having this argument with somebody the other day about the value of universities. And they were saying, you don't need universities anymore. You can learn everything you want to learn online and blah, 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 blah. And there's all kinds of arguments to that. But one piece is the off-campus interaction, or what Ellen's talking about, the lunches at the conferences. That's how you become a critical thinker. That's how you become a citizen. That's how you learn how to socialize. You learn how to behave, right? And get information from a range of people with a range of experiences and different levels of wisdom. And that's what a vibrant democracy needs. And so or else we just be a society of owners and workers. So I think that off campus or that interaction that's purely informal and social, we do lose with Zoom, and I can't wait to get back to that. I do miss that.
All I know is that in order to learn theater, you need to do theater. And until we get back into the theater as a company of artists creating theater, That's when the knowledge starts. That's where it is. You really can't learn everything online.
No, you can only learn. You can learn skills, and
You can learn some skills. You're right, and you can learn software and stuff like that. But you can't learn how to create in an environment. It's like trying to do jazz in 3 separate cities.
Well,
at the same time.
there have been people who have tried that, even here at UF. In fact, in the early days of the internet,
I've seen it. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work because the timing and the metronome.
It's timing, but it's also you're not in a room. There's a magic that happens when you have human bodies in a room. And it doesn't happen on Zoom.
You mean you're saying that Zoom is not a room?
No, Zoom is not a room. It's not, they're thousands of miles away and you don't feel the energy from people.
But at the same time, David, you know what? So I'll just tell a story. So I would have never been able, a former friend of mine was my electrician many years ago, Matt Shinseko, who's now listening to the show. He's like a lead tech. He came to class. The students met him. He offered his email, said, contact me when you move to New York. He told great stories. We looked at the light plots for the inauguration. We looked at the light plots for the upcoming Golden Globes that he's working on. We looked at light plots from Super Bowls, like all the stuff Ellen puts up online. But he's there. He's been there. And he's telling these personal stories about it. And the students were just enthralled by that. I could never do that before.
I'm not putting that down, Stan. I think that's important. But I think what's really important as well, if not more important in my point of view, is be able to actually create theater and be able to do it in a room.
That's different than teaching a class in Zoom.
No, you learn theater by doing theater. You do it and you learn it both. And you learn skills, like you said before, in a classroom. But you learn how to create theater by creating theater.
I was just going to say, it's a good thing Zoom exists.
I know.
Right.
Thank God that we have something. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so I'm grateful for that tech. And I'm grateful for the $1 million a month that the University of Florida pays for Canvas, which has Zoom integrated into it.
It's like a Zoom funeral, or Zoom shiva. You get to go to something you wouldn't ever have gone to.
Look at us. We're sitting here with our garage band open, which is basically the equivalent of a multi-million-dollar sound recording studio in the 1980s, is now sitting on our computers, and we create a podcast that's going out to how many different countries, David?
I don't know, 170 something.
Okay, that's
a lot.
You think about it. If you told me that in 1975 when I got out of high school, I would have said you're like dreaming. That's never going to happen. So it's kind of wonderful too.
Chloe from London asks, we are always amazed with LDI and know little about the backstage organization that you and your team have. What challenges are you facing organizing LDI for this fall? Well, there's a little challenge. It's called a global pandemic. Hopefully,
Just a little.
Yeah. Hopefully, it will have faded into the wings by November and will allow us to take center stage in Las Vegas. So everybody, please get your vaccine, get your bags packed, because with Cirque and Le Rev closed, we might be the only show in town. We're planning full steam ahead for November. We're hoping that Vegas will be open. The convention center is going to try to start, shows in June. They'll be all ready. And, whatever kind of social distancing has to happen will happen. But we're hoping that by November, everybody will be ready to get up close and personal.
How does the organization work, Ellen? You want to work as far in advance as possible and nail down exhibitors, right, manufacturers, people like that. And you obviously know about the size, right? Or how do you judge just how big the show should be?
Well, we have a floor plan. It's pretty much the same as it would have been last year. It's the same halls in Las Vegas. And our sales team is actively re-signing people for this year. And, people are very positive about it. I think everybody's ready to, get out and see their clients, see their friends, and get some, sit in a conference room and, be live. As wonderful as Zoom may be, in the meantime, I do think that people do miss that personal thing. We have a new parent company called Questex that obviously has been very patient with us because they bought us with fabulous expectations coming off of our best show ever at the end of 2019. And then, 2020, of course, I don't know if they did any of their shows live. And we've been able to pivot. We've done some really interesting master classes online. And, so we've kept our audience entertained, I hope. And we're really, really looking forward to getting back to the convention center.
So Kenny from New York writes, does your design approach differ when working on a devised production? Well, it has to, in a way, because usually a devised production is being created while you're in production. Obviously, when you're in rehearsals, and then you're actually on stage or in the theater. And you have to be more flexible. That's for damn sure.
That's the
and
bottom
you need to be
line.
more
Yeah,
open.
right there.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
And make sure that your light plot will cover almost anything you need. That your angles are covered, that you always have a light hung pretty much in every angle that you want or could even imagine having. Because again, depending, if you're working in a school, yeah, you can hang a light somewhere else, but you may not have that possibility when you're working for a professional company. So, you may be limited on the amount of hang and focus time you have. So make sure that your plot will cover almost anything that you can imagine coming up. So, oh yeah, shin kicker would be great in there. Instead of hanging, hopefully that shin kicker is there already. That you put it there, right? So that does happen.
Yeah, I would add one more thing. I think flexibility is huge in this, that you're really going to have to roll with the punches because the thing is being created. But because the thing is being created, I would not cast myself as just a lighting designer in the process. I think the best devised work I've worked on, where everybody was sort of seen as a member of the ensemble. We were all participants in the creation. And so I didn't feel like I had to stay in my lane. If I had a comment about the set, I could make it. If I had a comment about the staging, if I thought that this scene would play better at the top of Act 2. In other words, there's a lot of mishmash going on. And I think the best scenarios are where everybody is unrestrained. We're all creating the thing together. And I think sometimes in dance, we have a very active, vital dance program here. And I remember when I was interviewed to come here, one of the dance professors asked me a question, and they said, so have you ever, thought that you have a lighting idea that might actually inspire a dance piece? And I said, oh my God, do I ever? In other words, sometimes the impetus for the creativity can come from any source, and you are a source in the room. So I would sort of not typecast yourself as I'm just a lighting designer in a design piece. I'm also a playwright. I'm also a director. I'm also the roles can all the lines between the areas of expertise can become soft. And I think that's a really nice way to approach design. That's how I would approach devised production as a creative artist. Well, you are listening to Light Talk, and today Light Talk has a sponsor, and David's going to tell you who it is.
Lone Star Nuclear Energy Corporation. We're all preparing for live theater to return, and we all know that the first productions will be outdoors. But how do you produce quality outdoor theater when you have devastating cold waves, freezing orange trees, stalling automobiles, and shrinking body parts? Well, the answer is simple. Use Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray to keep you warm and toasty. Frigid conditions can have devastating consequences for lighting equipment and the human body. Lighting boards can freeze, toes can blacken and fall off, wild rodents will curl up next to you, sucking up your body heat to survive. Cheap space heaters tucked under the production table have no chance to keep you and your colleagues warm. When frigid weather attacks, use Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray, and we guarantee that you will throw those pathetic space heaters in the bin. Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray contains minute non-lethal amounts of plutonium-238 mixed with Old Spice. Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray creates a layer of heat on your skin that will last for nearly 87.7 years, or until you shower with a fire hose. But Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray is not only for you and your frozen assistants. Just spray some on that frozen Grand MA3. Not only will it run like a champ, but it will also now glow brightly in the dark. For those who prefer a more earth-friendly solution, try our South of the Border Hot Tamale Taco Sauce and Body Scrub. Just apply this fire-hot lotion to your skin with a mild Brillo pad each morning while taking your shower. Caliente! So stop starting your day by spraying your underarms with Right Guard. Instead, spray your entire body with Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray or wash with South of the Border Hot Tamale Taco Sauce and Body Scrub. You will love it when the entire company gathers around the production table as your heat literally melts the ice and will radiate the glow of love among your colleagues. Do not use Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray if you are pregnant or have autoimmune deficiencies or are allergic to old man spices. Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray is only for external use. Don't ingest Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray or spray it on any body orifices. Seek immediate medical help if parts of your body turn color or fall off. Do not use South of the Border Hot Tamale Taco Sauce and Body Scrub when wild animals are in immediate vicinity, especially bears who like spicy food. Heat 'em Up Aerosol Body Spray and South of the Border Hot Tamale Taco Sauce and Body Scrub for theater artists who prefer comfort over longevity.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, those crazy ducks tell us that once again it's time for another installment of Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about how do live entertainment and educational institutions serve people with disabilities?
Wow, great topic.
Yeah, because something just happened to you, Stan, right? About this.
Yeah, it did, or it is currently. And I don't want to be too, I want to talk in general terms, but I'll be specific about UF in a sense, but not too specific about what I'm dealing with at the moment. So we have two buildings, and in 2005, the original building that we work in was built in 1968, and the new building that what I was part of the process opened in 2005, and when it was done, everything, of course. We should all remember, by the way, that it was President H.W. Bush who signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was a beautiful piece of legislation. And so the building we opened in 2005 conformed to the ADA requirements at the time. But the 1968 building, because of money and because it could be, I'm putting up air quotes, grandfathered, did not get the same kind of treatment that the new building did. So we have lived with that for now since 2005. So if you were to have someone who needed accommodation, or you wanted to have an artist or a student or a faculty member, they would have some issues. And of course, now there's a big push for diversity, equity, and inclusion, but people sometimes forget that inclusion also includes people who might have one form of a disability or another. And I think when we speak about this stuff with such passion, sometimes we have to, if you will, walk the walk. And sometimes it's not just about words. Sometimes it's about money, real money, right? To make places, to give equity and equality to all of us, right? And because talent comes in all different ways. So we are dealing with this now, and whether or not we'll have a person in our program next year who has needs accommodation or not, I can report today successfully that when we went to the university and said, hey, half of our building, half of our theater, half of our control booth, we had some, it's not there. And I was waiting to see what would happen. And I'm proud to say that at the vice presidential level of the institution, the answer came back as, we will make this happen and we will find that money. So it was sort of a good impetus to really force the institution to put its money where its mouth is, and I'm proud to say that it did the right thing. And I think every theater should really take a look at that in all areas. It's whether it's your scene shop, your light shop, your costume shop, your acting studios, your audience chamber, and get that right. Get that right. I'm hard of hearing. I wear 2 hearing aids. When I go to Broadway, I get the headset. I give them my license, which is what you got to give them. Give them your driver's license.
So you give it back.
That's right. And they give you that headset. And what I do is I take the hearing aid out of one ear and I stick half of the infrared hearing set in one ear, and the other ear I leave with the hearing aid, and I get beautiful sound and I don't miss a word. I made a mistake a couple of years ago. I went to see Hamilton in Tampa, and I had really good seats thanks to a friend. And I was in like the 8th or 10th row, and I said, I'm not going to need the stuff, and I didn't get it, and I couldn't get out because I was in the middle of the orchestra seating, and I missed all the words, and I should have. But I also think that schools, it is the law that you provide that if it's asked for, and we have it in our school, but we don't really set it up and say, here they are, but you're supposed to. So I think that's something that we should be more sensitive to. It's near and dear to my heart. And I think it's something that doesn't get the attention that it deserves.
Ellen, you deal a lot with the public. I mean, how do you deal with stuff like this, especially during LDI and large trade shows?
Well, actually, we're lucky because the convention center is pretty much 100% ADA compliant.
Yeah.
I think they have to be. You can get almost any place on a ramp or an elevator. Yes, absolutely. Although it's interesting because you realize things like it says there's a handicapped bathroom, and if someone is using a wheelchair, but their knees are not bent, and one leg or both legs are perfectly out and straight in front of them because of a brace or a cast or something, you cannot negotiate those bathrooms.
That's right. That's right.
And I sometimes use a little mobility scooter to get around that convention center because I'm old and some of the distances are huge and there's not a lot of time to get there. And you realize sometimes like you go flying out of an elevator on a scooter and you run right into something that wasn't there the day before. Like they've put out these giant trash cans or there's a sofa that's been put in like right in front of the elevator.
Nice.
And the other thing is that if you're on a mobility scooter, it's not like really a wheelchair, and there's a distance between where you're sitting and the wall. So if you're by yourself and you can't stand up, I suppose, and you can't stand up, you actually can't push the button for the elevator. You probably have to carry a cane or a stick that you could push the button from afar.
I'm glad you mentioned the point about the bathroom doors because we were asked, myself and my electrician were asked to do an assessment for our school director about what we think would need to happen. And so we sat on the phone for about an hour, 2 hours, I think. And in our imagination, we just walked around the building together, imagining that we were, in a different situation and under different circumstances. And one of the ones that came up, like our new building is ADA compliant, but the bathroom doors, there isn't even a button on them. They're not motorized. So there's no way someone a person who uses a wheelchair can get in.
Well, how about the hotel room? You can't get in or out of a hotel room either. There's no way to hold the door open by yourself.
That's correct. Yep. And we do have motorized doors on the exterior of our building. So all you have to do is push the button or swipe your card and it opens right up. And so we do have that. That was done in 2005. But I just think it's but we were having conversations about control booths. We were having conversations about tech tables. We were having conversations about various things. And we were able to find solutions for most of them. But some of them were going to be steel and concrete kinds of infrastructure issues, and
just take someone who's using a wheelchair and send them to write a review of a building, and they're confronted with little circular staircases that lead to the control booth, and they say, well, where's the elevator? Well, there isn't any. Well, if I'm the guest lighting designer, how do I get up there? Or how do I get to the catwalks? Well, you walk up that ladder. Well, I don't. How do I get to the catwalks? A lot of it at this point, I guess, goes back to the theater consultants who have to think about every step through the theater.
Do you guys do elevators to the catwalk in your theaters, Stan?
So in one of the theaters that we built from the ground up, the orchestra pit is accessible with a lift. And also we have lift to the stage. In our building, in the new building, our black box is very cleverly done. So it's in the core of the building. It's a 3.5-story tower black box, and the catwalks actually have 2 doors from the hallway of the 3rd floor. You just walk right in, and you're on the catwalks. Now the problem is, and we were looking at this, the width of the catwalk probably could not accommodate a chair. So they are accessible, but to wheelchairs. But I don't think you could actually work on them. But many of the other areas and other lighting positions in that theater that was done in 2005 are through doorways at. We had a very good firm. We had a good theater consultant at the time, Michael Mell, who's a friend of mine, and I learned a lot from that experience. So but Ellen's right. That is on the theater consultant side of the ledger to really pay attention to that.
Well, all I know, and I think that Ellen and Stan will agree with me, is that no student should ever be denied being able to work and learn in the theater because of any sort of physical disability. I actually think it's great that the University of Florida is standing up. I know we have in my university as well. I've had incredible students with all different types of disabilities who turned out to be amazing artists.
Yeah, amazing, right? Talent.
And actually, a classmate of mine in graduate school, Rene Moreno, he was in a horrible accident that made him lose the function of his legs. And he became an amazing Broadway actor and an incredible director based in Dallas. Yeah, he was a very special person. And he got around everywhere because people realize that you cannot restrict the art of someone because of a disability. So I think it's great, Stan, that you're doing that and that the University of Florida is doing that.
I'm sure we're not the only program, but I'm glad to be one of them.
So Ellen has our last question of the day.
Jean from Bordeaux writes, With the tragedy of COVID decimating our industry, how do you see the manufacturers and lighting companies surviving? Do you see some of them scaling back new products and technology and playing it conservatively? Well, that's the million-dollar question, of course. I think that the industry will rise to the occasion. There is always a reach for new products, new places to use them, such as all the new XR stages that are popping up. And I think that our industry is full of incredibly technically aware people who are willing to always harness new technology so that yesterday's wonders give way to tomorrow's wizardry. And I think that will always be the case for live events. Or we could find ourselves being virtual avatars navigating hopelessly through digital landscapes.
Wonderful. What was that? Wonderful wonders and wizardry. You know, Ellen, to your point, and some of the economic stuff that I read, that they look at companies, what the successful companies do during an economic downturn. And certainly this is an economic downturn of historic proportions. And the ones that survive, they do what they can't do when they're busy during normal times, is they look inward and they develop their people, they develop their engineers, they brainstorm, they rethink things, they reorganize. So usually that's sort of a form of creative destruction in capitalism, that usually we come out the positive side from these things, because you just shift your gaze from one thing to internally. And usually it's a win.
Right, and I think they diversify. I think that diversification is a really, really big buzzword for our industry at this point, because a lot of the companies that were diversified or learned to diversify over the past year are doing better. I think some of the small rental shops and production companies may have a hard time. It's hard to tell when big live events will come back, the Coachellas and the Tomorrowlands and all of that. You know, Cirque du Soleil had 8 shows at one point live in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And now there are none.
Yeah.
So a lot of technicians, a lot of companies that provide gear to them, you know, it's going to be a slow rise back to where we were. But like I said, I really do think that people are wonderfully creative, and all of these XR stages that have popped up are really an interesting new way to present things. And I think that that'll stick around for a while, no matter what happens to live events.
Ellen, some of our listeners may not know exactly what an XR stage is. Would you like to explain that?
A really good example of this that people can go online and see is Katy Perry's American Idol finale from last year.
I saw this phenomenal. It's great.
And she, you know, is in a dress, in a chair, in a room someplace, and all of a sudden she's falling through a floor. It's like Alice in Wonderland. There are daisies all over the place. There are things blooming all over her. And it's just so much more technologically advanced than the old green screen technology where you could sort of put, you know, you put the meteorologist in front of the weather map. So it's really, really that kind of technology, you know, gone 360 degrees. With all kinds of new cameras and, you know, all kinds of media servers and new software and rendering capabilities. And the really clever people are moving in that direction, a lot of them. And I think it's something that schools will probably start to teach sometime soon. And I think that kind of technology is here to stay. But anybody who hasn't seen that Katy Perry thing should definitely take a look at it.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I shared it with some of my faculty as we were looking at ways to sort of do digital work. And I think one technical aspect that I think was on that piece too is they use real-time tracking. So she's being tracked in 3-dimensional space, and then objects are being tracked in 3-dimensional space, and they're synchronized. So in other words, a virtual object and the physical human being are both being fused and tracked. And we are actually working with a company that does that. We were going to use that technology on our last musical, but COVID happened. So we're planning on using that technology to track in real time performance. So all of that stuff is really quite exciting. I think there's some other schools who are delving into this. I've been hearing a little bit through the ERTA process. So yeah, it's very exciting diversification, and I think that's putting your eggs in one basket is always all your eggs in one basket is always a dangerous move. So I think it's the right thing.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, livedesignonline.com, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you decide to litigate David and myself, the law firm of Flecht, Flock, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sistah, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the beautiful tropical island of St. Barts.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about even more happenings in our crazy industry.
All that and a new sponsor to keep you cool this time.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning, and bye-bye from Light Talk.
Thanks, Ellen, and take care, Steve. We're sending you warm fuzzies.
Light Talk.